right, good morning. Welcome back to the Pokemon Reinforcement Learning Project. As you can see here, we are now into Vermilion City. We have kind of finally got through the issue where it wasn't completing the sequence to save Bill. How we ended up doing that was we put in very specific map IDs to not have the punishment for not moving it. So we had adjusted the immediate reward value there, and I think we found that it was, here. Map number 88 in the game is specifically for Bill's penalty. And then we're checking to see if it completes the event where it basically finishes the sequence of saving Bill. Once it does that, then the penalty goes back on and it quickly starts to continue on its journey. What I want to see here is, do we have to have the same behavior happen when it gets to the captain's cabin in the SSN? Because when it moves through there, you have to talk to the captain. I want to say it's like 2 or 3 times for that part to complete. But we'll see here. It looks like we've got a few getting close to that location. You can already see Venusaur here as well. So we'll see if they actually get through talking to the captain there, or if we're going to have issues there along the way. Basically, what ended up happening was, because there was the sequence to save Bill, you have to talk to him multiple times at different spots. It would do the first part of the sequence where it would talk to him, get the rewards there, but then it would continue moving on outside of the area. And so you can see here, there's this agent, the Venusaur agent here, working its way through the cabins, but I'm wondering if it even has completed the event. And so we'll go through the memory values here for the events, and we will try and see what's the captain. Yeah, so did it actually help the captain here? And then we'll do very similar event here. So if it's in the captain's cabin, which I'll have to see if we have that here in the map data. We do. Okay. So we'll do something very similar here, where we will look for this specific map ID, and then we will look for that specific event. So that way, hopefully it completes that sequence, and then it continues on afterwards. So do this. And it said it was 101. And then we need to change here. Now you can see there's a bunch of different events here. I guess specifically, we can just search for this. So as long as it's 2, then we're fine. All right, so we know, because the SSM won't leave unless it's done this part. So then no penalty in captain's room. Right. And then the other one, so we have this in 2 locations. Very much the same behavior, where we wanted to figure out the behavior. Once it completes the sequence, then we can kind of return the penalty to what it should be. And that's only specific to the room. You can see here, each of the cabins has their own map location. So this ends up taking quite a bit of space. But then this way we're removing the negative penalty, which means essentially that we are rewarding the agent for being in that room until it figures out what's going on. I feel like we will run into a very similar thing for the gym as well, and that is because there is the puzzle within the gym to try and figure out which of those trash cans has the switch hidden underneath of it. Let's say, let's see. So for these two here, we would have a very, very much the same issue. So let's just put this in now, so that way we can cut the issue off before is that map number 92? We don't have to worry about the agents just sitting here because it needs to figure out the cut sequence to actually get into this location and then figure that out. So we got here. This is a 1 for the second lock. And then this will keep it going on. No penalty in Vermilion Gym until locks are open. So then, like I said, we cut off this before it becomes an issue. The last thing is, will it actually learn will it learn cut? So we've gone through and updated the learned cut. So what this does is it goes through each Pokemon's move addresses. There's 4 for each of the 6 Pokemon in the party. We then basically accumulate a ward as we go through there based on the moves that it has. And then you can see here what this ends up looking like. So here you go. So at the beginning of the game, it starts very low and then continues improving as we keep going through. So it's starting to figure out some of what the better moves are in terms of what it keeps, and then in terms of the party as well. And then what we had also started seeing was there was a bit more diversity in terms of the Pokemon that I kept. So yeah, we started seeing more of Nidoran. We started to see getting more of the Magikarp here along the way. What's interesting is a lot of times the party is full by the time it gets to Magikarp, so it can't complete the action, but you can see it started to, I almost want to say diversify, or stop capturing a bunch of additional Pokemon once it has started. So it used to have like 3 or 4 Pidgeys and Rattatas, and basically no space for anything else along the way. Now it catches like 1, sometimes 2, and then continues moving on. It really likes capturing Kakuna, I think just generally because it's easier. It doesn't really do damage along the way, so it tries multiple times to get them. There were a few times where we had seen Beedrill in the final Pokemon, and that's because it would get Weedle and continue leveling it, because it's fairly good against the bug Pokemon itself. And since Kakuna doesn't do any attacks, it's fairly easy to get that up early in the game and evolve it. But the nice thing here is that, like I said, we are seeing more regular diversity in the parties, which then gives it better chances of being able to proceed through where it needs to. And you can see here a couple Weedles that it has leveled up. And this current run, we're about halfway through the time allotment, which is we give it 200,000 actions to take. We probably can start extending that once we get to it actually completing the cut sequence. So that way we know kind of to open it up, because the world, once you have cut and are able to use that regularly, it starts to open up what's available to you along the way. So this will kind of force it back afterwards, but then, it can cut the bush here, get the other bush to get out of cerulean, and then work its way through the cave system there to start working at the tower. And then, like I said, once you've cut, it opens up the game, and so it may not be as linear as it was before. I know there were certain roadblocks along the way that it could conquer, but now it will. If I have access to the fuller map here, I want to say, yeah, because the next target should be Erica here, and then having to learn the specific cut locations may be part of the challenge here. So, we want to hope we can cross those one at a time. It seems like for now, we do have a few that are still going around the SSN, but we have no way to know if it had obtained a cut or not. So we can come back here. And like I said, we put rewards in for getting specific moves, but we can change here. So this shouldn't be has learned cut. Let's change this to we want this for move rewards. Reward for learning stronger moves. And then we want one for gems. And then we'll just need to make this as HM. So let's make sure at least we can return 0. Need to check multiple. Yeah, here. What I wanted to check here was the item rewards. don't have a map for those. Yeah. Okay. Let's see what we can change here. Yeah, so I'm just overwriting what that is. Let's see what I left myself in the note. Oh, it just ends to the same location. Okay. Because what I was thinking was to check the individual things. I guess in this case, we'll go through, we'll check the individual HM values. Because it's not necessarily linear for cut and, sorry, not cut. It's not linear once you start getting surf or fly. You can get them in kind of the order that you find them in the map, not necessarily you have to get them in the exact order, especially with the Safari Zone being a challenge in terms of figuring out the map to get the right rewards in there. So I guess we'll map the individual values for now, and then make the changes that way. So come back here. We have yeah. Never want to check. Say come here, and then if it's got the first one, I want to say HM. What's the first one? We want to come back. I want to say the next HM. There's two. There it is. I want to change this so it's not linear as well. So that's why, you don't want it to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because if it gets, let's say, surf before fly or vice versa, in terms of the HM, then we're not exactly sure which one it had gotten. So do it that way. Here's number 3. So if this in front of them. Excuse me. Okay, that one's. This one's on 0 as well. And this one is, oh, okay. Yeah, now I'm just worried about this. So let's change this to be, right? The reason why is if we make this, the essentially 11,000 in rewards, it will end up draining out or drowning out the other things along the way. So just by scaling it down here, we'll have an idea of what the actual value will look like. We'll see progression in like receiving additional rewards for doing these, but it won't be completely overwhelming the other rewards along the way. So then that should help keep things moving forward. So now if you come through here, the has HM's function exists. Once we restart the run, and that will be good to go. It shouldn't particularly affect things in a negative way. The reward value for the learn cut here has just had its name changed, not a big deal. And then adding new rewards that it hasn't obtained yet shouldn't cause significant changes here, that we can likely keep the progress that we have obtained in terms of the map completion. And you can see here this Mola Venusaur I don't think has figured out yet quite what to do, but at least we would be able then to check and see, is it actually obtaining the cut, because the map visualization won't update to make that change for what we see here. So we have no idea if without this, if we had obtained cut or not, and then wouldn't be able to know if it had learned it. We see the score here for cut will cause significant changes to that score. You can see here, it basically will cause it to jump up to 200. We don't see that in particular across any of the agents here, but that is like a complex sequence for it to learn, not just learning cut itself, but then where to actually cut in terms of the locations. So let's see, what else do we see here? Why this keeps happening with the 1 dB. I'm just wondering if this is because of the table that we put in place. This had been one of the reasons why we had to stop one of the other runs, is it would start timing out the connection to 1DB. It seems like it's fine now. So we had it over the weekend where it just would not be able to reconnect to the run. And that's why we had to restart it. So you can see here, we'd started on, I want to say this was Thursday or Friday of last week. And then it died after about 2 days. And then the same thing had happened. We started on Thursday, Saturday, ran into that issue, and then again Monday with the same issue. So basically I just had to restart it to get the connection to work again. So I'm really starting to wonder if this one here that's now off the ship and exploring other locations, if it had completed the sequence. The only other way I would be able to tell would be is if I see it go back to the dock and not be able to get the reward that's there. But just want to see what's happening. Yeah, I don't think I'll be able to tell. And then we've got this one out here as well with Venusaur. We're about, I'd say, 3/4 the way through this run. What we'll do after this is we'll have to restart it with these now in place. So that way we can see if they are actually getting the sequence done on the SSN. We should hopefully have now incentivized it to finish the reward in the captain's room, and then we can see if they're not learning cut on their own, we can kind of bypass that with updating, let's say, a growl here on the movement. So just take growl and replace it with cut manually by doing the same thing we did with the Pokeballs here. So instead of fixing that to 10, we would change the move number here for growl to the move for cut. And then this allows it to, I would hope, find this location. And then worst case scenario is then we have to also go through and take that and specifically say, hey, when you reach, let's say, this location here, then go through the cut sequence. Or you end up here on the side, go do that cut sequence. And then hopefully it will figure out what to do afterwards. And we would have to also, I guess, figure out the specific locations of this on the map. So that way, like I said previously in this first generation, it's like 5 or 6 steps to actually get to the point where you can do the cut sequence. I know they simplified that in the future, where it's like as soon as you get to there, you hit the A button near it. It asks if you want to use cut, and you do so. But in this one, you have to go into the menu and then go through the options to find your Pokemon and then select cut under its menu for that Pokemon, which is challenging for the AI to do because it just doesn't understand that whole sequence until it starts to learn it on its own. And then these bush locations, like, it has no way to visualize where it is. So it doesn't know that, for example, the one that just walked by there should go ahead and do the cut. So Hey Shinko, thanks for stopping in. I know you had left comments on some of the other videos as well. Yeah, we're making good progress here. Like I said, we're now kind of developing ways that we can measure if it's actually getting through the sequence here with the cut wall to make it through. So today we put in how to check if it had received the individual HMs, and then this part where we had rewarded it for learning certain moves. We want to keep this in place because this will stop it from overwriting. Let's say, it wants to replace cut here with move it learns later in the game. Well, even if it does it the first time or two, it'll stop doing it afterwards because it loses the reward for changing that move. And then basically my son and I had worked through this, and we read through the moves one by one that are available in the game, and then gave them like a slight score. So these are kind of your harder hitting moves, your hydro pumps, fire spins, solar beams, things like that. And then these are like the generally good moves. So we've seen now some of them learning Razor Leaf, which is in here. These are kind of like a lot of the basic starter moves here. Your tackle, peck, things like that. And then kind of the mid-range moves after them. Well, a lot of the earlier type specific moves. So that way it learns across the game to keep learning better moves instead of essentially it was only overriding the first one. So for example, when it goes to learn a poison powder here at around level 20, it now essentially would get penalized when it does it. So like, for example, this one, it attempted to, or it did learn poison powder, it replaced tackle. So then it overwrote and lost some reward during that time. And so we're starting to see more and more it not accepting the prompt for poison powder and continuing to continuing to keep tackle along the way. Or, we get here and it overwrites the poison powder then with Razor Leaf. So all in all, we're making good progress. Pretty much wrapped up what I wanted to cover for today. Okay, so this one here that did complete the sequence, it definitely has the HM because it can't go back onto the ship here. There's a level 37 Venusaur here, which means that the boat has left the dock for him and he's completed the sequence. He just hasn't learned cut. So this makes me think that we're better served by going in to the moves and saying, hey, if you have, growl, then we should overwrite that. So I think that one is here. Yeah. There it is. Growl is 45. Yeah. So let's do this. We'll do the and then force learn gems. And essentially, where is that? Here. So now, if we've completed the sequence here, what would be your approach for something like Safari Zone or Git to brainstorm that? So Safari Zone is interesting in a couple of ways. I think we have to, one, well, we already have basically essentially a way to give it more money so it can spend more time learning the area. We may have to incentivize it for getting to the deeper map locations that are in the Safari Zone. So that way it can continue making progress to those deeper parts and the specific rooms. So I know there is, for example, what is the teeth? You can see here, like there's one specifically for giving the teeth to the person. And so we may have to do a similar thing that we did with the other ones, is removing the expiration penalty during that time. The other way is to just give it, there is a memory value that holds the steps there, how many steps remain in your time in the Safari Zone. And so maybe instead of, giving it, once we got this, got HM, we would turn that off. And so it would eventually figure it out, and then over time would start getting there faster. And I'm not sure through those rewards. Yes, because we have like the limit on how many times or how long the cycles go. So right now we're at 200,000 steps per cycle. And so over time, it will try and find out the most efficient ways. But you can see here, when we go to the values, where are we at here? There are fluctuations in this where it's trying to figure those out. And it may just take more time, longer term, to go through them over and over again. So like I said, the short-term way would be to give it so that there's no penalty for it during that time, where it is trying to figure out these specific sequences. Because we have the immediate revisit penalty, which keeps it moving along through the game faster. In this case, we would set the Safari Zone step value to be constantly at 500 until it gets this HM. And then we can let it decrease naturally, which would then also take it out of the area. And this would then keep it kind of proceeding along the process that we would like to have it go through and learn those rewards more naturally. Because a lot of times what happens with just the random movement is it won't be able to make it there. I think even with the very intentional pathing, I want to say you get there in about 400 steps or so, maybe 300 at best. And with like the random movement, it just won't be able to efficiently path that until it does it, I'd say probably 30 to 100 times to really figure out where those rewards actually are. And then the other thing is it would also need to figure out the two parts of the sequence. So first part is finding the teeth and then taking it to get the actual HM there. So let's come back here and what do we call this? Force. So we need to figure out where Bulbasaur is in the party. So I need their ID. So we've got $153. Come on, pen. So you got 153, 154, 9. So 153, 154, and 9. So we need to check what the Pokemon in the party is. And that should be here. Lead Pokemon info. So we need to read this value. Here. And let's double check. Here. That's not what we're looking for. I'm looking for the move. I have the list of moves. Hold on. These ones. And so specifically what I want to do here is I wanted to replace Growl. And we can come back here to the plot window. In this case, Growl is 46. Sorry. I don't know why it's throwing any error here. Oops. Oh, yeah, because I'm missing it. So go through this way. Yep. Then we're setting it to cut. Now we're basically going to do this. Actually, we should know. Here, its second move should be cut all the way through. But now we need to go look at the second Pokemon if it had moved it for whatever reason in the party. And so that's where we come back to here. So extremely fine-grained reward engineering essentially becomes programming through the backdoor, right? unless you're on words, you gotta think more so about the approach and making an AI for Pokemon. Yeah, so I think the difference here is in like how you want to approach this, because there are multiple things going on in Pokemon at the same time. There is the sequence for exploring the game. There is the battle sequence. There is the, let's just call them like the puzzles through the game, and like the general game knowledge. It's very difficult to, especially with reinforcement learning, have it think in a logical way. It's always trying to maximize the rewards you get. So the better you define the rewards, the better it understands the game. And the challenge for Pokemon is that it's because it's so long running that you have these different layers on top of one another, and then things from the beginning of the game or decisions you make early in the game also affect what you have available to you later in the game. And then it's also non-linear, right, in terms of the map. So you see here kind of the progress through the game is you got to go all the way around, have situations where then you're going, you're backtracking through the map and going through it, or trying to proceed through it, all the way through to the point where, oh yeah, instead of, essentially realizing that you've looped around and now you're going to go try and access Victory Road here. It's very easy for us to understand that, but it's very challenging for the agents to understand what that is. And so that's why, like, once we kind of cross this path here with cut, it's actually going to become even more challenging in terms of how you want to shape those rewards for its progression. And then, there's tons of little puzzles here along the way. You're looking here at Sabrina's gym, right? And knowing which of the warps is the right sequence. But when an agent explores randomly, it becomes much harder for it to do. You have things like the game corner here, where, is it going to attain Porygon? Probably not in terms of that reward. But it does need to be able to go, where is it? Through all the levels here to find this backdoor area for, what is it? I think it's the first face-off against Giovanni. And be able to continue proceeding through the game. It also needs to be able to get the items from the vending machine, so that way it can open up the pathways through here, right? Because there's the guard who says like they're thirsty, and you need to give them a drink, and that's where you would get it from. But it doesn't know what that sequence is. So it's very, I'd say, challenging in terms of the long-term progression for the agents like this. And so if you want to do like specific agents for the battle, I know there is different simulators for those where it goes through and you're basically just training like you essentially define what are the moves for it to learn. It plays the battles out over and over again until it gets the winners. But that's only one aspect of the Pokemon games themselves. And so you really do have to do more of the reward shaping side to get the better progression through the game. Otherwise, it spends a lot of time like going through menus, because that's available options to the agent itself, and then it doesn't particularly proceed through the game. So even though you can, like, we've given it essentially negative rewards for not exploring the map more or not completing battles here. So like we have this menu score here is to decrease the likelihood that it actually goes in the menu, but this doesn't stop it from doing that. And that's especially important because you sometimes will want to come into the menu to heal. And so you really do have to be, like I said, intentional in the rewards that you give it and shape it. But to be able to have it learn the logic, it's just like the reinforcement learning is not capable of understanding the logic itself. It only really understands what am I doing to maximize the reward that I'm getting along the way. And then how do we also prevent that from being exploited in a freestanding exploration mode, essentially. We had, before I had fixed up the heal rewards here, Bulbasaur, it would basically manipulate this with Bulbasaur going into battle against low-level Pokemon. It will use Leech Seed a few times and then Growl, and then only use those moves basically until the battle was over, and it was running up the score here in terms of the heal reward, because it just became more, because it couldn't find the way to proceed forward at the time. It was getting stuck with Mount Moon. So it's just like, oh yeah, I can get more and more of this score. And so I'm going to do that over and over until I run out of time, essentially. When I first put in these two penalties here for the revisit and immediate revisit penalties, it was essentially picking long sections of the map here. So it would go like through the path here and just run this loop over and over again, because at least it wasn't getting penalized for standing still, and it wasn't actually then proceeding to do the game, but it couldn't get forward at the time. It hadn't figured out that, oh, you need to finish the build sequence, and then you can then finish the build sequence and beat Misty for the, I think it's the police officer here, to be moved out of the way, but it hadn't figured that out. And so it essentially said, well, rather than get penalized for standing still, I'm just going to keep moving through the map. And so it figured out basically like a 500-step sequence that it could run where it was no longer getting this revisit penalty, and it was no longer getting this immediate revisit penalty. But it wasn't learning the behavior of completing the game or figuring out the puzzle at hand. And that's why I had to put in the a little bit of the shaping here to give it no penalty until it finishes the sequence for being in this room. And then similarly, the sequence here with the captain's cabin. And then I proactively put one in here for the gym, so that way when we encounter the sequence with Surge, for figuring out the locks here, that it can actually get in to fight Surge. What I hate to have happen is it gets in here, thinks, oh, there's nothing here because I'm not getting any more rewards, and I'm going to go back out. And then we're kind of stuck in that loop over and over again. So that was the idea with the changes here. I am kind of running short on time here, so I'm going to finish this out in terms of the rewards here for forcing cut into them. So there we go. Okay, so they're just linear in terms of their number. Five, 6. This is 6, 7, 8, and 9. And then if we go back up here, this is that one. This is there. So then, so this is the as obtained cut HM right, and then that's the idea. Here. So save those. We will we'll stop the training session here. We will then update this. This was the last one. Save this, save here, and essentially we're going to restart the runs. So now it'll be going forward with the new rewards in place, and then the sequence force learn HMs. I don't think I put this in for it to do. Yeah. And here we go. I should stop that. Save the files here. We'll close this out, and then there we go. So we'll let this run for a bit of time just to continue the progress here. And then, like I said, hopefully we can get to the point where it figures out cut. That's the goal of this next cycle. And then we'll check in on Thursday to see if it had gotten to beating Surge. If it hadn't, then we know what what to do here. We're just going to have to specifically say if you reach certain locations on the map, use cut and what that sequence is. So we'll give it the time, the next 2 days to run and figure that out. Hopefully it's able to do that and we don't need to force that upon it, but we'll see in terms of its progress. So for those of you who are here still watching, thank you very much. And we'll be back again tomorrow. We'll be working on the typing game website where basically we were just using Claude responses. We were working with it, going back and forth to create some typing games for kids. We had one complete in its entirety. That was our home run typers. We were finishing up with Animal Rescue. There were still some small issues with that where for some reason some of the animals were staying on screen. I think this is when it had created duplicates. So for example, if 2 were up with letter B, it would take 1 off, but the second one would stay up. And so we'll finish up that, and then we'll work into the next couple games that I got there. So thank you all, and have a good day.